I'm Ricky Haggett, and I am one of the founders of Hollow Ponds, which is a independent video games studio. We're based in London. And what do I do? I guess I'm kind of a creative director, I suppose, and also I do a bunch of programming. And yeah, like I guess when I put down my job title, I would say I'm a game designer. I think that's the biggest hat I wear, I suppose.
Yeah, I'd also say a game designer is my main job title. I'm Richard Hogg. I have been collaborating with Ricky and his studio making games for coming up for 12 years, I think now, something like that. And my background prior to that was very much art, was like making illustrations and art, and my kind of way into making games was making the visual aspect of it. And to this day, that's the bit that I'm in charge of. But I consider game design as a holistic thing, so yeah, I would also say I'm a game designer above anything else, if that makes sense. Yeah.
So your studio's making a game called I Am Dead, and I have to know, where did the idea for this game come from? Is it rooted in any truth or life experience?
We've made it. We finished making it.
Yeah,
that's the most important fact.
Yeah, now we can rest.
Yeah.
It came from a couple of different places. I think that we made this game called Hohokum, Dick and I, which came out in 2014, and that game is a game with no writing, no explicit, narrative. There's no speaking or written stuff, but it's full of stuff. It's full of worlds and stories and places and objects in those places, and the player is left to interpret those things as they see fit. And we love that game, and it's been quite a kind of popular game. People are really into it. But one thing about that game is that Dick and I spent so much time talking about the places in that game and the worlds and all the characters, but so much is left to interpretation. And I think with I Am Dead, one of the things that we wanted to do was make a game where we put in that same amount of effort of building a world and telling stories, but this time have those stories be really explicit and written, and be really clear about what those stories are.
Yeah, we were really hungry to tell stories, weren't we? And to tell them, maybe the game is set in the in the present day, so there's really lots of really relatable stuff in the game. There's there's teenagers drinking their first out booze when they first discover alcohol, and there's artists having their egos dented, and there's I don't know, stuff from it's lots of stuff that's really relatable, hopefully, and from real life, and stuff about people getting older, stuff about people's relationships, and how they live their lives, and how their friends saw them, and how they, there's characters that perhaps weren't the friendliest people, but quite antagonistic people, but got on each other's tits, and there's stories based on that as well, and yeah, we just really enjoyed making this. We really got into the kind of the sort of coming up with lots of little snippets of things that felt like real life. And at some point along the process, we started working with a writer called Catherine Johnson, who initially was just giving me advice. I was trying to write stories, and she gave me some writing advice, some basic creative writing sort of pointers. But then she ended up also getting involved and writing a lot of stuff for our game, and we collaborated quite closely with her, which was fantastic. I appreciate that we haven't really. We have answered the question. We're talking about where the idea for the game came from, I guess.
I was going to answer another bit of the question, which is, a big part of this game is the slicing mechanic. Is this idea that you can slice into 3D objects, and that was something Dick and I talked about really early on. I remember sitting in a pub with Dick and talking about hey, a lot of those places in Hohokam that are like these little curious houses. Like, wouldn't it be cool if you could like lift up the flap and see what was inside these houses and like kind of, you know, peel away the frontages and look inside? And Dick was like, what, like in real time? Like, you know, literally like slice them away. And I was like, oh, that's not what I meant, but that does sound good.
Yeah.
And we started to talk about this, like, what if you could, you know, and what if you could like, physically slice inside 3D objects? What would that feel like?
Which is crazy because we'd never made a game with 3D art assets at all at that point. We'd only made like two-dimensional games. So we had this quite good idea that we thought was a bit of a winner, but it involved making a 3D game in order to do that thing.
Yeah. What's the way that you can make the first 3D game you make really, really, really hard? Yeah, you have to render all the insides of all the objects as well as the outsides. Good work, guys. Good place to start.
But I think it was always going to take something like that for us to sort of make that jump into making a 3D game. I think we would have always had plenty of ideas for games that didn't require a 3D environment. If it hadn't been for that thing forcing us to make that move. It's quite interesting.
Yeah, that's true. Like, you know, even at the start, I remember when we were thinking about how we were going to do it, we even did spend some time thinking, how would we do this in 2D? Yeah. And eventually it's just like, you kind of maybe could do something, but it wouldn't be the same as, you know, really being able to do this in 3D. So yeah, we had to figure out how to solve this problem in 3D.
Yeah, can you guys elaborate more on that? Because, you know, in game design and visual game design, you're used to making like a TV, but in your game, you have to make a TV, and then you have to be able to look inside the TV and see the parts of the TV.
Yeah.
That sounds like an astronomical amount of work. It just sounds like.
Yeah, I don't think we actually have a TV in the game. There's a CRT monitor.
We have a monitor,
so I guess that's the closest thing to a TV. Yeah, it's mind-boggling, isn't it? Like, and now when I play games, like when I play other people's games now, I'm looking at these like 3D model objects and I'm thinking, oh God, they're just like nothing inside. They're thin, hollow things.
They can intersect each other without anyone ever knowing.
They're just like, that's not a real rock made of rock. That's just like a thin surface of rock with literally nothing inside it. And whereas all the things in our game feel like really like reassuringly solid and real because they all have like, and we had to kind of come up with the sort of technical solutions to be able to make three-dimensional art assets that have guts in them, have material sort of insides to them, and that was a lot of fun. We started off with me and Ricky making a prototype based. I kind of, despite our ignorance about 3D stuff, we kind of managed to make a working prototype. Then we worked with other people. Like we worked with a guy called Jonathan Whiting, who's an amazing programmer, getting it really like, getting it more sophisticated and like, even like early on when we were like properly making the game, and there was some more people involved, some other artists, you know, 3D sort of artists doing modeling involved. I remember thinking, oh, we can't be too ambitious with this stuff. But then we ended up, like, you look at some of the stuff that actually made it into the game, and it's like there's whole ships and buildings that cut away, and everything is, you know, you see through the middle of everything, and it's like it's kind of bonkers how far we took that idea. You know, I know the art style is very simple, and it's quite sort of low poly art style, which it kind of had to be, but yeah, I kind of feel like we really kind of got to the knuckle of it. You know, I think we really explored that idea and hopefully made loads of things that are like really satisfying and lovely to look at on the inside and the outside in that kind of weird way that you get to do in I Am Dead, where you can kind of almost just lose yourself. You're looking at a thing, you know, you're just looking at a thing, and then you kind of scrub it away a little bit and then rotate it and you know, I love watching people when we've play tested the game, watching people just do that, you know, just like losing themselves, examining these objects in a way that you can't look at objects in real life, and yeah, I think we did that idea. I think we did that kind of core mechanic idea justice, hopefully. Yeah,
it's like it's emergent animation that just comes from exploring 3D form and being able to slice through it.
Can you guys speak about the world you created? Because at a first glance, it looks like a very stylized, like, human world, but then you look a bit closer and you see bird people and
Yeah.
amphibian people, and it has a lot of this, like, subtle, dry humor in it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess
It's sort of ostensibly like a very English place. You know, the
Yeah.
island of Shelmerston it's a fictional island, but I think it has a lot of its roots are in real, you know, British places and sort of British culture. But yeah, then it does some stuff that doesn't exist in the real world.
Yeah. I really like that. I really like being sort of fast and loose with that and just going, well, you know, this is kind of based on the real world, and in a way, you know, it's like I was saying earlier, it's got like really kind of real, very real stories in it, and hopefully feels really relatable. But then at the same time, let's make this guy's head an apple, you know, why the fuck not? And you know, like people you know, I can think of like other artists who do that same thing and do it in a kind of weird sort of casual way where they don't talk about it. Like a really good example is you know, Lisa Hannah-Walt, who did all the art. She's the visual artist who did all the art for BoJack Horseman, where like in BoJack Horseman most people are animals, but some of them are just normal humans, and it's never really explained why that is or how that world works. They just kind of leave it as a thing that just is what it is, and I find that really entertaining, and yeah, I can think of quite a few sort of artists who kind of do that, and I think it's I think it's a really lovely thing, you know, like, and it lets you do like interesting stuff, like, so all of the tourists in our game, there's all these kind of tourists who all come from the same place, and they're all birds, they're all these kind of colourful finches, and there's a story as to why they come, and
they're birds, so they've always come to Shelmerston. The idea is they've always been coming to Shelmerston for thousands of years, and it used to be a long time ago that it was just part of their annual migration. You know, they'd come and lay their eggs on Shelmerston, but you know, as times have changed, they've gradually, you know, they get more luggage and they've got camera equipment, and now instead of flying to Shelmerston, they take the ferry. And so there's the ferry rocks up, and they're getting off the ferry with all their suitcases full of just like stuff that they would bring.
And that's got a sort of gentle humour to it, but it's also got a kind of it also is also like a sort of hopefully like a very mild kind of metaphor analogy for like certain types of tourists in the real world, where you might get a whole load of English people, you know, like 50 English people all go on a package holiday where they all go to Dubrovnik in Croatia, and they spend the whole time just all looking very out of place and following some guide who's got an umbrella, you know, the guy's got an umbrella, and they all have to follow, you know, it's very, very much this homogenous group of people who have gone on a foreign holiday, but they somehow manage to kind of isolate themselves from the place they've gone to. They have a real otherness to them, which I live in a place that tourists come to, and I quite enjoy how tourists, I quite enjoy that sense of like seeing people and seeing the discomfort of people who are in a place that's not their home. And so by making all of these tourist birds, it's kind of like a way of sort of like cranking that feeling up in a humorous way, hopefully. Yeah.
And then we also have a race of indigenous fish people. Like they're intelligent. They have legs, but they live under the water.
They're intelligent. They have legs. Do those two things go together? I didn't realize.
Well, they're fish people, right? But they don't have tails.
Oh, I see. So they're not.
Walk up onto the land. They can breathe. They have gills. I guess they have. Do they have lungs? Do fish people have lungs and gills? How does it work?
Both. They'd have to have both, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. Lungfish, like a lungfish.
Yeah.
They're a bit like the creature from the Black Lagoon, aren't they? In their physiognomy, you know. Yeah.
And until the idea is that, you know, for you know, thousands of years they've been coming up onto the land and, you know, hanging out with humans for various reasons. Like, you know, there's a section of the game where you get to see what happened on Shelmerston thousands of years ago, and, you know, even then they were sort of coming up on the land and hanging out with humans, and but more recently, like in Shelmerston's recent history, the idea is that they've gradually, maybe over the last couple of decades, become more and more integrated with sort of human culture and society. And the main sort of driving force of this is the fact that they absolutely love dried food. So they basically discovered how much they loved, especially toast. Like they just can't get enough of just dried toast.
Yeah, because right, so like where they live underwater, everything's just so slimy, right? Everything's like wet and cold. so they love crunchy, dry, warm food.
Yeah, so they've set up a toast shack where they just sell dry toast on the quayside, and that sort of forced them to like have, wear clothes and deal with money, and have jobs.
Yeah, like where did the idea for the toast restaurant come from? Because when I saw that, I was like, "What? Wait a minute! It just sells toast. That's all they sell.
We just
Yep,
love
that's
toast,
all they
mate.
sell."
Greg, we just love toast. We can't help ourselves. No, I don't know. Like I guess we just came up with that story. We were talking about these fish people, and we were talking about what might be the things that attract them to want to integrate into a kind of human society. And we thought, well, yeah, toast might be like, or dry food might be a thing. And then we just kind of,
we listed all the dry foods, and then we chose the funniest one.
Yeah. We just followed it to its natural conclusion, really. I guess I just saw a different cat came through. I don't know if you saw.
Yeah, I have two. There's two of them.
Yeah, beautiful.
Oh, that's Buffy. That's Buffy. She has a pink nose. Oh, sorry, Buffy. She has a little blaze on her face.
Oh, she's beautiful. Look at that. Isn't she sweet?
You good? Go on.
Yeah.
They're hungry. I feed them at around 9:30, so they're being a little rambunctious.
Oh yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah,
okay.
My cat in the morning is just like doesn't shut up until I feed her. Just
oh wow.
Very vocal cat. Yeah.
So I want to talk about because at its core your game is about exploring and telling stories, but there's also puzzle elements, and I'd like to talk about games that have a puzzle design in general, because I feel it's a lot harder to design a game like that, because in like a battle royale game, you're just shooting people. Like that's what you're doing. Like, I mean, that's the design of the game. You may tweak weapons or the environment, but that's the game. But when you're making a puzzle game, you have to actually design a linear experience with a correct solution.
Yeah.
And it has to be challenging, right? And it can't be, and like, you know what I mean? So I think it's a little bit more harder to make a puzzle game than it is to make other types of games.
It's really hard because you can't play test it yourself. You can't play it and go, oh, let's see how hard this puzzle is to solve, because you know the answer. And you can't role play being someone that doesn't know the answer. So you're flying blind in that sense compared to making other kinds of games, and that was frustrating.
Yeah, like let's quickly talk about the types of puzzles. So in I Am Dead, we've built all these quite rich environments, quite dense with objects and hierarchies of objects. So there'll be you can go inside a building, and in the building there'll be a piece of furniture, and you can slice inside that and find a bunch of things in there, and there might be a shoe, and there might be something inside the shoe. So there's all these like dense hierarchies of objects, and then there are effectively, I guess, two main kinds of puzzle. There's like find this object. And it can be, and these are the kind of core objects. So each place you go to in the game, you're looking for a ghost, and you find the ghost. You sort of channel the spirit of a ghost by finding a bunch of mementos, like objects that were special to that person when they were alive. And those and you find out what those are by sort of experiencing these memories of the person. And then you basically get like a little icon, a little picture of the thing you're looking for, and you're just looking for it. And hiding those things was more straightforward, I would say, because like you're kind of hiding them, but you can draw on things that happened in the memory, the story, to sort of give you a clue about where they might be. The environment that they're in will naturally suggest certain places that you might look. And also, because it was kind of the through line of the game, we wanted that to be not incredibly hard. Like, we didn't want people to get properly stuck not being able to find something. So yeah, we erred on the side of like not making it too difficult to like find those core objects.
Yeah, and designing easy puzzles is definitely easier than designing hard puzzles. That's just a natural thing I guess.
And then we have this other kind of puzzle, which was originally when we started to work on the game, it was kind of the only kind of puzzle at the start, which is you don't just have to find an object. In fact, you don't even get a picture of an object. What you see is like you're looking for a specific slice through an object. So you're looking at like an icon which has a shape on it, and you're like, okay, well, what object in this room could I lock onto and then slice through so that it will show me that shape? And figuring out what made good slice puzzles was really hard, and it took a lot of iteration, and we ended up making, I would say, I'm going to guess that we made something like 5 times as many of those puzzles as there are in the final game. And originally the game was going to have like a bunch more of those puzzles in each space, and we just ended up whittling it down until we
to the
figured
really
out
good ones. Just to the really good ones.
Yeah.
I'd love to say at this opportunity, but I never got good at making those puzzles. I don't think any that I made are in the final game. Whereas like Pat, who's part of our team, Pat Ash, is responsible for a hell of a lot of those puzzles and got really good at making them. And I'm really grateful, really grateful to him for sort of for kind of becoming the owner of that specific bit of the game.
There was the one of our like environment art. Well, the environment artist. He did some 3D art. He did lots of laying the levels out. Adam Coburn did lots of like figuring out slice puzzles. We also had a work experience person, a lad who did work experience for us, Callum.
How old was Callum?
He's 16.
Yeah. Did we even pay him? Brilliant. We didn't even have to pay him as well.
He did work experience for 2 weeks, and there's like a handful of his that are in the game.
That's really good. I'm really proud of him.
But yeah, making those was really hard to like figure out like what things feel satisfying there that aren't like just so obviously easy, but at the same time because it's really easy to make stupidly hard ones. Tuning that stuff was hard.
Yeah.
Can you guys talk about Sparky the dog and how he came into being for the game? Oh, she came into the game.
Sorry. Yeah, we like dogs. That's it. Answer. No, I guess I can't remember exactly like how the process by which we decided, hey, here's a little man. I can't remember exactly the process, like how we decided we need a dog as a sort of sidekick and a kind of adjunct to the player character.
I think it came from Morris, right? Like we were talking a lot about Morris and what Morris would be like, and I definitely remember that there was a conversation about like I think there was a point at which the idea was that you would find out how Morris died, and Morris maybe died walking along the beach, and in fact the game starts with a walk along the beach, and out of that it was like Morris feels like the kind of person he would have a dog with him walking along the beach with him. And then from there, we started to get more into the idea of like, well, who is this dog? And maybe this dog is a useful character that can be part of like the game. And then as soon as we figured out, like maybe the dog, maybe Morris's dog is a character that knows way more about the afterlife than Morris does, and can kind of teach him quite a lot of stuff, and sort of bring him. At the start of the game, Morris hasn't been dead for very long, and he's feeling a bit sort of lost and adrift about what am I supposed to be doing in the afterlife? And then he kind of bumps into Sparky, and he's like, "Oh, Sparky, you're here too." And then she kind of fills him in about what's going on and like what the player kind of needs to do.
Yeah, and we really like that kind of gentle humour around the fact that this dog that couldn't even talk when it was alive, in the afterlife, seems to sort of naturally know more about what's going on than he does, and guides him through it, and has quite a distinct kind of sense of humour and personality. I really like the voice that we ended up with
it was really fun doing the voice acting for the game. Was really, really fun. Like, it's a thing we've never done before, and the process of casting and then working with the actors and sort of refining the script, and that process, really, really enjoyed that. It really like it. I think it's a bit like animation is a thing that you can't really put your finger on why it adds so much sort of richness and warmth and love to the world. It's sort of this ineffable magic that I think voice acting has that same kind of quality. You
had two very large childlike cats come in.
Yeah, we've got a dog as well now.
They're quite noisy in the mornings until you feed them as well. Yeah.
So my other question is, obviously we're dealing with stay-at-home orders and the COVID-19 pandemic right now. How did that affect the game's development, if at all? Because your game's already out, so it sounds like it was on the final stretch when it hit anyway.
I wouldn't say final stretch. I'd say maybe like final quarter of development happened during COVID. Didn't affect us much at all, really. Like, we were already all working remotely from home anyway. Like the whole of our team. Well, no, that's not exactly true. Ricky and Pat used to go into the office, didn't you? You had an office in London.
Yeah, we still do. We used to have an office that we haven't been into since March.
Yeah.
And so, I've had to adjust a little bit to working from home, but it hasn't, in terms of like how the team functions, we were already functioning, as a remote team, and that's
quite a widely distributed team already. So
in a way, like the last stretch of finishing a game, where you have to just like really finish everything, polish everything, is quite like mentally consuming. Like we're not like crunching or anything, or like working late nights, but even so, it's like it's quite a lot to take in. And in a way, just like being forced to stay at home and not being like, oh, it's really sunny and lovely outside, I just want to go to the pub, is like, oh, you can't. Well, in a way, it's like that last feeling like I've just got to finish these last few bits is almost like less of a wrench, because like it wasn't competing with anything more fun to do. There was no you weren't able to go on holiday anyway. So, yeah, in that sense it was all right.
Yeah, that's a good point actually. So this year I don't think I would have had like a massive summer holiday, even because of the game, and then COVID meant that it wasn't really on the cards anyway, although we did go away for a week. But yeah.
And then we did, and I guess the other thing is, no game shows. Like we would have done
that's a really good
point. Doing press and going to like PAX and E3 and all the other shows, and instead of that we've been at home doing this stuff.
We've been doing what we're doing now, talking to people like you, and that's been good. It's been really good.
I would say that's been largely, from our point of view, that's been largely kind of positive.
Mari and her colleagues have been amazing with putting all that together as well. Really.
And then the last question I have for you guys is, your game is out now. What platforms can people play it on? Obviously Steam. It's coming out on Nintendo Switch as well. Like, where can they find more information and support and buy it?
What are we allowed to say? Mac is on its way. Are we allowed to say that?
We are.
Yeah. So
PC, it's on Steam and Epic Game Store, and it's on the Nintendo Switch store.
Any plans for Xbox and PS5 or PS4?
We haven't announced anything yet. I think that's the official position. Stay tuned, I guess.
Be nice to, wouldn't it? I think,
Yeah, I think you're in that weird spot now where it's like you can make it on Xbox One or PS4, and then the PS5 is coming out, and then you have to figure out what the requirements are for that, and then, so it's in a weird place. People are in a weird place if they're releasing a game right before the new console cycle.
We've done that before. We've been in that spot before.
Yeah, like one thing that really helps is like we're using Unreal Engine, and so at least making other versions for other platforms is significantly less difficult than it would be if we made it all ourselves in our own
It's still
tech.
quite difficult though.
We did that in previous games, and whereas this game is like, let's just use the we're not going to try and make our own 3D tech. Let's just use an engine that can do these things. So that definitely helps.
Yeah. So your game is out now on Steam, on PC. It's just in time for Halloween, even though it's not spooky ghost, it's still a ghost story. So just in time for Halloween in the States.
Yeah,
so we didn't.
Fun. We that coincidence hadn't occurred to us really when we realised what the launch date would be. But I actually quite like it. I like the fact that we're like the least spooky ghost story ever, and we're sort of launching around Halloween. It feels right. Yeah, I'm happy. Yeah. Really happy with that.
It's I don't know if you've ever seen this movie, but it's the ghost dad of video games. The non-spooky friendly ghost.
Yeah. Is there a film called Ghost Dad?
Yeah.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, it's American film. It starred Bill Cosby back in the early 80s.
Oh, it sounds good. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like